During her internship in Wakanda, Riri Williams had the opportunity to learn a lot from Shuri and return to her city with a mind full of new ideas. The young woman is a great inventor, but she needs resources to bring her ideas to life. She's convinced that in order to succeed in the world of technology, she'll need a whole mountain of vibranium, and that means Riri needs a lot of money to finance her research. Just the artificial intelligence that will be attached to the inventor's prototype already costs millions of dollars, so Riri is trying to make money in any way she can to finance her project. The young woman's goal is to continue Tony Stark's legacy and revolutionize security, as the suits she is building shorten the response time of first responders, firefighters, search and rescue teams, and any other agent working in public safety. However, when she discovers that Riri is making money selling her projects to students at various universities, her advisor arranges a meeting with the girl and reveals that she has lost her scholarship, as MIT is totally intolerant of any kind of plagiarism. After being expelled from campus, Riri realizes she has nothing left to lose, so she steals the costume she built with the Tony Stark scholarship and leaves campus in style. During the flight, she calls up her virtual assistant, Trevor, and asks for his help to set a course for Chicago, where a gang is gathering to break into a mansion. Thanks to Stu's knowledge, the group manages to disable the entire security system, and Slug gives Roz and Jerry the coordinates to find the safe room. However, when they open the door, the alarm is activated and the Blood siblings have to fight off the security guards, who appear shortly afterwards. After defeating all those guys, the pair run back to the van and drive to their hideout, where they meet their boss, Parker Robbins. When he discovers that Stu hasn't done his job and has put the whole team at risk, the man orders John to fire him, but first he needs to find someone to replace him. Just then, the pair come across Riri's suit flying over the city. The young woman is on her way home and is preparing to land when, suddenly, her costume begins to fail and Trevor disappears. After losing control of the thrusters, the young woman ends up falling and loses almost all the parts of the suit she built. At that moment, Riri gathers all the pieces she can find and walks to her house. During the walk, she meets Landon, and the young man uses his wheelbarrow to help her carry her belongings. When she finally gets home, Riri finds her mother and discovers that she has already been informed of her expulsion. Suddenly, Xavier appears and Riri takes the opportunity to go out with her friend and avoid the scolding she would get from her mother if she stayed at home. Later, when he takes his friend back home, Xavier gives her a music tape as a present, and John, who is on the girl's tail, manages to catch them together. The next day, Riri goes to Jim's store and the old man is delighted to see her again. The young woman is about to bargain for some items when John appears and pays for all the girl's purchases. As soon as he saw her, the man recognized her and immediately remembered the little prodigy girl who, a few years ago, was in all the newspapers because she started college at the age of 15. As the two leave the store, John asks why Riri isn't working for Stark Industries or something, and the young woman says she's never done well in traditional companies. At that moment, John finds the perfect opportunity to give Riri his card and invites her to meet Parker. The next morning, as agreed, the young woman shows up at the company's headquarters and walks around the place looking for an employee. As she can't find anyone, she follows John's instructions and heads for the kitchen. Once there, Riri enters the elevator and presses the button that will take her to the second floor. However, during the ascent, the elevator stops working and the girl starts pressing the button to try to turn it back on. Just then, the panel comes loose from the wall and she realizes that there is a timer installed in that elevator. Suddenly, a curtain of smoke spreads over the place and the young woman hears a voice saying that, in less than 3 minutes, the air inside will no longer be breathable. Therefore, she will suffocate and lose her life unless she manages to open the door before the 3 minutes are up. After destroying the door locking system, Riri uses an iron bar to elevate the door and manages to get out of the elevator in less than 2 minutes. At this point, she is greeted enthusiastically by Parker and his team and discovers that she has managed to break Stewart's record, who also passed that test on the day of his interview. However, Riri is not at all happy with this news and refuses to work for a bunch of people who were ready to eliminate her on the very first day. In an attempt to change her mind, Parker offers her a large sum of money and Riri begins to rethink the proposal. Although she's very interested in all that money, the girl isn't willing to hurt anyone, but Parker assures her that she won't have to. According to the criminal, his operations consist of robbery and invasion. Even knowing this, Riri is aware that this is the best opportunity she'll have to finance her project, so she decides to join the team. That night, the young woman locks herself in the garage with her headphones on to work on her outfit, as she will need it the next day. However, during the reconstruction work, she remembers the day her stepfather and her adopted sister lost their lives after being shot in a gunfight. When she is taken by surprise by these memories, Riri starts to cry and decides to go to her room, as she is unwilling to talk to her mother about this pain. The next morning, the girl returns to the workshop to finish her work and, after countless tests, she manages to rebuild the costume. While waiting for her armor to charge, Riri falls asleep and dreams of Natalie. Seeing her adopted sister after so long, the girl is shocked and ends up fainting. When she wakes up, Riri continues to see Natalie and comes to the conclusion that the person standing right in front of her isn't real. It doesn't take long for the young woman to discover that she is standing in front of a three-dimensional image that is being projected by the chest plate of the suit she built herself. Natalie's image is being used to replace Trevor, Riri's former virtual assistant. So now the young prodigy has to figure out how to modify the AI's appearance so that it doesn't project a hologram of her long-gone best friend. While she can't figure out how to undo that mistake, Riri needs to keep Natalie and Ronnie far away from each other, as she knows her mother will freak out when she sees such a faithful copy of her stepdaughter. As it's already time to meet Parker, Riri has to leave this problem for later, so she orders Natalie to stay in the room until she returns. Upon arriving at her new team's hideout, the inventor discovers that her first mission consists of hacking into a company called TNNL, which is responsible for transforming Chicago's historic freight tunnels into a private highway with the aim of providing a safer route for travelers. The plan consists of loading malware created by Slug onto one of TNNL's mobile access points. That way, the hacker will be able to control the system, and Clown claims to have the perfect strategy to help Riri break in. After explaining the plan to all the team members, Parker orders everyone to be ready by 8 in the evening, then Riri returns home to make the final adjustments to her costume. However, when testing the thrusters, the young woman discovers that they are not working as they should and enlists Natalie's help to scour the illegal market to find a seller who has the parts needed to make the repair. To get her costume there, Natalie rents Landon's trolley and uses the subway to get to the other side of the city where Joe lives. When she finally manages to find him, Riri shows him her outfit and tries to convince him to sell her the pieces she needs. After some time trying to convince the young woman that she's gone after the wrong guy, Joe realizes that he won't be able to fool her and decides to take Riri to his warehouse, which is located in an isolated area a few kilometers outside the city. When she arrives at the site, Riri discovers that Joe has a bunker full of highly technological equipment and is impressed by the whole arsenal. When asked why he created a collection of weapons capable of destroying an entire country, Joe says that he created the bunker to feel close to his father, who was an engineer obsessed with technology. With all that material at her disposal, Riri finally manages to fix her costume and says goodbye to Joe, as she has urgent work to do. As soon as she returns to Chicago, the young woman and her team begin their mission. While John and the Blood siblings distract the security guards, Clown opens a crater for IRONHEART to invade the tunnels. However, during the journey, Riri is startled by the sudden arrival of Natalie, who shows up completely unexpectedly. At that moment, the young woman has an accident and drops the USB stick containing the malware into the sewer. Luckily, Natalie claims to know how to shut down the system, and Riri has no choice but to trust her AI to do the job. After attaching herself to one of the vehicles moving along the expressway, the young woman uses the hand of her suit to access a lever capable of bringing down the entire system. When the lights go out, the vehicles stop and Sheila Zarate, the owner of TNNL, tries to understand what is happening. Just then, Parker appears and the woman realizes that, all this time, he was sitting in the back seat. The man used his invisibility cloak to go unnoticed and, after revealing himself, he informs that his team has taken control of the entire TNNL system. He then pulls a contract out of his pocket and orders Sheila to include every member of her team on her payroll with 6-figure salaries, as well as free access to that highway and a share in the company's profits. After being convinced that this is the only way to get her company back, the woman gives in to Parker's blackmail and signs the contract. After fulfilling her part of the bargain, Riri returns to the surface and ends up being caught red-handed by a policeman who points a gun at her. At that moment, Natalie slams on the brakes and the young woman loses control of her suit. Unable to move, Riri stands with her hands up and is about to be arrested when Parker appears and shoots the policeman. The bullet grazes the girl's suit, but hits the shoulder of the officer, who is wounded but manages to survive. Seeing her boss with no fear of hurting an innocent person, Riri begins to think that this job is not for her and comes to the conclusion that Parker is a dangerous man. After celebrating the success of the mission with her new friends, the prodigy girl decides to leave and spots her costume flying over the city. After landing, Natalie appears and apologizes for having failed at a time when Riri needed her help. When asked what happened, the hologram says it froze when it saw the gun, and Riri realizes that the eye has not only the same personality, but also the same traumas as the real Natalie. After apologizing, the virtual assistant reveals that that night, just before Parker shot her, she felt a strong energy radiating from him. Since she couldn't analyze what kind of energy it was, Natalie came to the conclusion that he was using an energy source from another planet. Despite knowing that her boss and the whole team are very suspicious, Riri says she will continue to work with them for the time being until she gets the money she needs to build the best superhero costume humanity has ever seen. Just then, the girl receives a call from Xavier and the young man invites her to a concert. While Riri has fun with her friend, Parker fights the voices that have been invading his head ever since he found the invisibility cloak, and John is worried when he notices that the scars on his cousin's back are getting bigger and bigger. However, Parker says he is willing to pay that price and endure whatever pain is necessary to maintain his power. A few days later, the criminals receive their first paycheck and celebrate becoming the newest members of Chicago's elite. After dancing under a shower of money, they reveal what they intend to do with it from now on. While his colleagues speculate on what to do with his fortune, Clown appears wearing the cape that Parker keeps in his safe. The woman reveals that she has spent the last few weeks trying to figure out the access code and finally managed to crack the password. When she sees her teammate wearing that cloak, everyone gets scared and advises her not to put the hood on. Curious to discover the origin of the thing's powers, Riri decides to analyze it, but her plans are interrupted by John. When he sees the hood in Clown's hands, the man attacks her and takes the hood back. At this point, Riri becomes furious and challenges John, but Parker appears and manages to calm things down. That afternoon, he and his team start planning their next heist, and this time the target will be Hunter Mason, CEO of Heirloom. The challenge will be to bypass security, as the entire facility is equipped with sensors designed to detect any metal that could be considered a threat. Therefore, knives, suits and bombs are strictly forbidden on that mission. Later, when the whole team is out for the day, Riri decides to talk to Parker in private and tries to understand how the hood works. However, like the girl, Parker also doesn't know the source of all that power and claims not to care, because all that matters is that the hood helps him protect the ones he loves. Later, when she returns home, Riri presents her friend with a new pair of headphones and Xavier begins to wonder where the young woman is getting all that money from, since a few days ago she didn't even have the money to repair her outfit. In her defense, Riri says that she's got a new job and, as much as she refuses to give details, Xavier realizes that his friend is hiding something important. That same day, Joe pays the girl a visit and reveals that he found her address on Google. Since seeing the costume Riri has built, the man has had several ideas for projects he'd like to get off the ground and asks for the girl's help to make them a reality. The next morning, Riri leaves the house to go to her stepfather's old workshop, and Natalie reassures her when she realizes that the young woman is suffering from a panic attack. It was there that Riri lost Gary and Natalie a few years ago, and this is the first time she's been back there since. After calming down, the girl returns home to find two policemen at her door. They've come to ask about the relationship between Riri and Stu, as the young man was found lifeless that morning. The records indicate that this young woman was the last person to call him, so the police are investigating her as a possible suspect. At this point, Riri says that she met Stu at a job interview and took his phone number, but they were never close. When the cops leave, the girl goes to her room and starts freaking out, because she knows that when she wants to get out of the life of crime, she'll be Parker's next target. Determined to put an end to this story in order to protect herself and her family, Riri decides to steal the hood and uses the prototype of one of Joe's projects to help her. When she arrives at his house, the young woman realizes that the man is trying to create a neural link between her brain and a computer chip. To do this, he makes a gigantic cut in his own arm and asks for Riri's help to find out what's wrong. During the conversation, the young woman discovers that Joe is actually the son of Obadiah Stane, Howard Stark's best friend, who supposedly lost his life in a plane crash. However, the truth is that Obadiah, also known as the Iron Monk, was eliminated trying to take down Tony Stark. Knowing that his father was a supervillain, Joe spent his whole life fighting not to become someone like him. But ever since Riri showed up on his doorstep, Joe has been tempted to venture into the world of technology. When she discovers the impact her presence has had on the man's life, Riri asks for forgiveness and helps him to bandage his wound. At this point, Joe decides to provide the necessary parts for the young woman to build the prototype, and Riri wears a screen under her clothes to hide the laser cutters she will use to take a piece of Parker's hood. Later, she finds her team and flies to the watchtower while Slug turns off all the security cameras in the place they intend to invade. In an attempt to get an alibi, Riri leaves Natalie in charge of her costume so that everyone thinks she's in the tower. Meanwhile, the young woman jumps into the water and breaks into the ducts to get to Hunter's office, which is right in the center of the facility. When she gets there, Riri finds her boss negotiating with Hunter and, when the businessman refuses to give him the amount he demands, Parker orders Roz and Clown to set fire to the greenhouses. At this point, Riri uses her laser cutter to take a piece of Parker's cape, but accidentally sets off the meters and the alarm is triggered. When this happens, all doors close and all exits are completely blocked, because the security protocol has been triggered. Now that the invaders are outnumbered, Hunter grabs a gun and orders Parker to leave before he shoots. Furious, the criminal activates his invisibility suit, but Riri manages to cut off the piece of the hood just in time. As she hides, the young woman sees the businessman being eliminated, as Parker attacks him mercilessly in the neck. Just then, a group of armed security guards arrive at the scene and Parker uses his powers to eliminate them while Riri takes the opportunity to escape through the ventilation. However, as soon as she enters the tubes, the emergency doors close and she is trapped with nowhere to go. Immediately, Riri contacts Natalie and discovers that the entire building is in self-defense mode. Because of the girl, all the greenhouses have been isolated and the system is injecting carbon dioxide into all of them. Worried about the members of her team, Riri orders Natalie to save them and tries to find another way out. However, as soon as she manages to get out of the pipe, she is caught by John and the man sees a piece of the hood in her hands. Furious, the criminal attacks the young woman and discovers that it was she who activated the facility's security module. After confessing that he eliminated Stu, John says that Riri will suffer the same fate and tries to hit her with his knife. However, the girl manages to dodge and runs around the greenhouse looking for something she can use to defend herself. Even after being hit on the head, the man continues his attack and suddenly realizes that he is suffocating because the oxygen level in the greenhouse is too low. Just then, Natalie appears and Riri puts her costume back on. After recovering, the young woman leaves and leaves John behind trapped in the greenhouse without oxygen. When she gets home, Riri feels guilty for having taken someone's life and realizes that, during the fight with John, she lost her laser cutter. While mourning the loss of his cousin, Parker is tormented by voices in his head and discovers that Ironheart was responsible for eliminating John. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.